Okay, dear all, let's come to the next topic of our subject, that is called transistor. So first of all, transistor is a semiconductor device which is used to amplify and switch electronic signals. It is made of a solid piece of semiconductor material with at least 3 terminals for connection to an external circuit. Now, at least 3 means that minimum there are 3 legs which we known as terminals, but they can be more than 3, and we will see in our upcoming lectures that what are the names of those transistors which have more than 3, that is 4, 5 or even 6 terminals or legs. So devices with 3 terminals, where one terminal can be used to control the flow of current through the other 2 terminals. So these 3 terminals are basically responsible for calling the name as transistor. So you can see in the diagram that the 3 terminals are available and their names are emitter, base and collector. There are 2 types of transistors. One is called junction transistor and the other one is called field effect transistors. In this lecture we are going to consider the junction transistor. So the junction transistor is because of, as we have seen, that there are 3 terminals, emitter, collector and base. So base is a junction between collector and emitter. Collector, as the name indicates, it is collecting the electrons, and E or emitter, it is emitting the electrons. Base is acting as a small material, as an interface between the collector and emitter, and it is acting as a junction. So there can be 2 types of junction transistors. One is called the NPN transistor and the other is called the PNP transistor. Now NPN means that the emitter is N type, base is P type and collector is the P type, N type. So it is called a straight switch. Now N stands for negative carrier and P is for the positive carrier. So that part of the semiconductor or transistor in which there are more negative elements or negative electrons available, or we say that they are the negative carriers, that is called the N-type material, and the one which has more of positive carriers, that is called the P-type material. And if we reverse the connections, that is N becomes the P, P becomes the N, and then N becomes the P. So it means that the emitter and collector are positively biased and base is negatively biased, then it is called a PNP transistor or an inverted switch. In the diagram you can see, if we are connecting an NPN transistor, there is an arrowhead which is going out, but in the case of PNP there is an arrowhead which is going in towards the base. So this is the actually symbolic configuration of the 2 transistors. Now NPN as a switch, when base of NPN is connected with logic high voltage, then it short circuits the emitter and collector and it is working as on switch. But if the base of the NPN is connected with logic low voltage, then it acts as an open circuit for both emitter and collector. In that situation it is called a switch off circuit. Now this is the actual working of the circuit diagram to show how the switching is being done. Let's suppose that it is connected with a motor and the VCC is acting as the main power supply of the transistor. Now as we see in the diagram that it is an NPN transistor because the arrowhead is coming out. RB is a resistor for controlling the current. We can connect this base to logic 1 or logic 0, and then the emitter is connected with the motor and the motor is then connected with the ground. So if we connect a logic 0, then the transistor is off and the motor will not work. But when it is connected with 1, the transistor will become on and the motor will start running. So in the same transistor we can control it to work or stop according to the logic 1 or 0 connected in its base terminal. When the PNP is acting as an inverted switch, so when the base of PNP is connected with logic high voltage, then it is acting as an open circuit for emitter and collector, and it is acting as off switch. Now as we have seen in the previous slide, the same we have discussed for NPN. Now we are discussing it for PNP, and it is totally reverse of the working of NPN. So when the base of the PNP is connected with logic low voltage, then it is short circuited and both the emitter and collector and the circuit or the transistor is working as an on switch. In practically, the transistors are basically used for these three major applications. They are working as a switch, they are working as an amplifier, and they are working for realizing logic gates. So that's all for today's lecture, and then we will continue in the next lecture.